All right, it's talk time now. Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has identified corruption as largely responsible for the abject poverty of the majority of Nigerians and the massive fatalities suffered by the most vulnerable in the society.
And he was speaking at a national conference in Abuja, and State House correspondent Maria Olashende was there.
The National Assembly Joint Committee on Anti-Corruption has thought it expedient to organize this event, given the series of recent happenings within the polity. The conference seeks to explore what further needs to be done by the National Assembly in terms of legislation to strengthen the fight against corruption, given it is a subject President Muhammadu Buhari has made a cardinal pillar of his administration.
And I will start by looking at us to look at our processes, the way our financial institutions operate, the way our financial institutions know their clients, the way we operate the areas of land registry, all the areas where proceeds for corruption can be hidden. It is my view that stringent procedures that are ready to apply tough fines to defaulting parties will play a great role to prevent corruption.
For the legislature to play this role effectively, its own hands must be clean and its house put in order. A corrupt and self-seeking legislature will not have the credibility and authority to carry out its role as a watchdog of the people.
In the fight, Professor Patrick Lumumba, who gives the keynote address, advises the executive, judiciary and legislature to work together to achieve the fight against corruption.
And that is why lifestyle audits are important, and I urge you to enact legislation that will require Nigerians that before you build a house as a public servant, you must show us the source of your funds. You must tell us where you got the money. And if you did that, you'd be amazed that those who build mansions will be reduced by 99%.
Declaring the conference open on behalf of the President, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, who has been involved in anti-corruption advocacy since 1990, believes a conference of corruption in which all arms of government are involved can only have one objective.
That a corrupt executive, for example, will destroy all plans for development. That a corrupt legislature will use its legislative and oversight functions to enrich itself and compromise its role of check and balance. And that a corrupt judiciary will sell its power over life and death to the highest bidder and return society to the anarchical notion that self-help is best.
Osinbajo charges the leadership of the National Assembly that the conference must not be a finger-pointing exercise. The leadership of the National Assembly has agreed that the fight against corruption cannot be done alone by the executive. They have assured Nigerians that they will stand with the executive in the fight against corruption. Maria Olashende, TVC News, Abuja.
All right, we have joining us in the studio to look at the judiciary, talking really about cleansing the judiciary. Chairman, Nigerian Bar Association, Ikeja Branch, Additional Ogunlano, and Dennis Etemiyang from, well, he's right here too in the studio with us. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yes.
All right, we also have in our Abuja studio a lawyer, Daniel Bwala. Daniel, it's good to have you join us this morning, and welcome to the program. We also have on Skype Uche Igwe, a research fellow from the Sussex Center for the Study of Corruption, University of Sussex, United Kingdom. Uche, it's good to have you join us in TVC Breakfast.
Yeah, thank you, Dan.
You're welcome. All right, let's start it this way. The fight against corruption in the judiciary has been one that a lot of Nigerians see from different perspectives. I remember we had you on the program sometime, and even some other lawyers who said that judges are close to God because of their sanctity, because of the role they occupy in the society and all of that. Now, in the judiciary, all lawyers look forward to that level where you get to that height of being that little God, as the case may be. In Nigeria, following what has been happening all the while, what direction do you think reformation in the judiciary should take? Especially seeing that a 10-man committee has been set by the National Judicial Council.
Well, thank you so much for your question.
I should like to say, speaking for myself as an individual, that council that you just mentioned is not acceptable to me.
Okay.
It's not acceptable to me. It's the usual bourgeois, if I should use a Nigerian language, party, old school network, clannish, the usual thing. When you are talking of reformation, you should be thinking of something much more foundational. Way back, maybe about 6 years ago, I mean, when I think J.B. Dowd, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, was president of the NBA, there was a report that even the agency was finding about 80% of judges has been efficient, if not corrupt, and all that. Now, the topic is saying cleansing judiciary, something which will have to be much more foundational. We have to accept that this very apex, very important institution of state that deals with social engineering to stabilize society really, because it can make nonsense of both the work of the legislature and the work of the executive, because the person that has the power to interpret law is actually the law and not what the lawmaker has done. And so when you are looking at direction, you'll be looking at thorough weeding out of elements in the judiciary. Actually, there has been, it's only now that we have talked about amplification of the fight in the judiciary against corruption. There has been before institutional ones, but you generally you don't want to scratch too deep. And then when you find people like us that have been voices of reform for more than 16 years, talking strongly, you can kind of blackmail people, come to and say, why are you trying to watch our DT leaning?
All right, let's just put you gentlemen on hold, all four of you on the show this morning. Let's take a quick break and return shortly. Cleansing this all-important body. We have additional Gulan on NBA Chairman Ikeja branch. Dennis Etimiyang is also in the studio with us. Of course, Daniel Bwala and Uche Igwe via Skype. Now, let me put this question to you, Dennis. Mr. Ogulano has said there is a need for thorough weeding out of the judiciary in itself. Let me ask a broad question. Is it possible really to expect, a judiciary that is above board, like, Caesar's wife?
Yeah,
some say a society, deserves the kind of government it gets. So, by extension, a society deserves the kind of judiciary it gets.
Well, to a large extent, I believe it's very possible to have a judiciary that is above board. Now, you need to also understand that even from Bible time, corruption among the judiciary was very, very obvious. And that's why in Micah chapter 7, I think, verses 1 to 3, you get to understand that even judges were collecting bribe. But you see, the case in Nigeria was getting worse. And if you look at it, until the SSS stepped in, and that's why when people were shouting due process, I said, well, we may not have a conventional process being used, but what the SSS did is not illegal. It's not convention, but then it's not against due process. And I'm so excited I'm meeting, because most lawyers will try to tell you, no, it's like this. And look at the judicial, the so-called cleansing panel they've set up. My good God. Why not let us look at the historical background of this element? I will not want to mention name, but let me give you a very good example that you know that committee is already polluted. For you to become an NBA chairman, you need to bankroll a campaign. Who bankrolled the campaign? It is the political bigwigs. Now, the person who pays the piper dictates the tone. And suddenly you are bringing a very political element. You understand me? And I want to give the public one information. One of the easiest way to influence what goes on in the judiciary is to have somebody who can easily network these people into what you want them to do. And this has been going on for a very long time. Before the political era, there was this time businesses in Nigeria were dying. Why? Because some persons came into this country and they could actually bribe their way, pay most of the judges and get the kind of judgment they want. And at the end of the day, strangle businesses in Nigeria, and they will not allow. That was at the face. But now we are seeing it because it's political. It's becoming large scale. To a large extent, the public should discountenance the NJC as even presently constituted. So don't even talk about this thing. NJC was shouting, oh, it's intimidating. They are trying to intimidate the judiciary. They gave all manner. Is that the same set of people you will now trust with a cleansing process? I think we have to wake up in this country and know that cleansing the judiciary is not even an executive venture. It's not a vendetta, as some media people have actually tried to paint it. I really commend very neutral media like yours. Let me also tell you this. You see, corruption has grown to the level in Nigeria that corruption owns media network. Corruption owns people in the press that are holding account for these corrupt officers, and they are always there. So if you touch a judge that they know that is handling an interest of one of their clients, the client turn to them. What are you doing? What are you doing? They start spinning. And that is how it goes on. You see, I will refuse to be part of that spin. And I can tell you this. I was very close to Chief Ganifa. And you see, I will always remember then, like when I sued the government for inviting me to the conf, there are judges we don't pray cases get to those days. And there are those judges that, you know, when the cases get to them, they will stand firm no matter the military pressure. Where are they? Why not get these people together and say which way forward for this country judiciary? You see?
Wow, but the same cleansers will have to come from the system. If we don't trust the judiciary to do a self-cleansing, you don't trust the NJC, where will these people come from? Let's this question, Uche Igwe, let's bring you in at this point. Weighing on what we're talking about, where do you even begin the process of cleansing the judiciary because of time?
I'm sure we can start from somewhere. The federal government have started already, and I think that it is in our collective interest as a nation to allow this process to go on. This whole issue of raising concerns of human rights, and I learned that there was a demonstration led by some lawyers yesterday back in Abuja to say that this is tyranny, there's an oppression of these judges. This is a calculated attempt to divert attention from what the real issues are. For me, I think we should start from somewhere, and the federal government has started, and all concerned and patriotic citizens should allow the prosecution of these judges to continue. And if they are found guilty, well, too bad. But if they are innocent, they should be set free. That is just what I think. And that is how it happens in other clients.
All right, Uche, let me stay with you on this. In the first place, what are those factors that make corruption very, very acceptable or make corruption thrive in the judiciary, especially at that level?
Well, I think that the most important issue here is the alleged connection with these elements in the judiciary with the political class. Political corruption is the most destructive and virulent form of corruption. So the issue is that we need to also step back to ask some interesting questions about what sort of connections these judges allegedly have with politicians, and who are these politicians, and how does the corruption, alleged corruption in the judiciary, enhance political corruption and the corruption of the political class. When that network is established and broken, then we'll be making a headway.
All right, this question is to you, Daniel. If indeed the indicted judges are found culpable, and you know the perception, the general perception that we have about the judiciary as it is today is really the case, what does this portend really for the judiciary going forward?
Well, thank you for having me. The thing is, corruption is in every facet of our national life, but because the focus is on the judiciary, it's important for us to highlight some of the problems associated with judicial activities, and especially reform. That is what I try to converse anytime I have the opportunity to talk about, because I think that we're all agreeable to the fact that there is corruption. Now, my observation is that the National Judicial Council as a body and by its constitution cannot be a body that nominates, recommends, and at the same time discipline. If you look at other jurisdictions like the United States of America or the United Kingdom, you discover that they have an independent body that handles disciplinary procedure for judicial officers. For example, in the UK, they have what they call Judicial Conduct Investigation Office. In the United States, they have what they call Judicial Investigation Commission. That is an independent body, that looks at complaints against judges. It determines whether the complaint falls within the purview of civil.
All right, Daniel, we seem to have a distortion on your audio there. We have to we'll put that together before we have you on, so we can really get clarity on what you're saying. Now, let me come back to additional in here. The UI inside the system. Maybe give us a picture of maybe how bad the corruption, the said corruption, or maybe inefficiency within the system is.
How bad, though? It's bad, though. Sorry.
You had to speak Yoruba.
You had to speak Yoruba.
Yes.
I have to lapse into Yoruba. It's bad. It's bad. And you see, the truth of the matter is that the judge or the magistrate or even the customary court president or whoever is sitting as a panel over the affairs of other men, quite powerful position. That's the truth. But now in the country, how do we judge success? We judge success materially. How much houses you have, the type of car you use and all that. And now you have people that are termed gods, demigods, so to say, but they don't have the puritanical attitude or the chastity of our gods generally. I've been in the system for the past 20 years. In fact, it was because of the deep-rooted level of corruption, which was even becoming extortionate. Because you've talked first of bribery first, and then you later go on to the issue of corruption, extortion. And when you talk about inefficiency and bribery in the judiciary, you are not just talking only about the judicial officers only, right from the threshold. When you want to file papers, you find the clerks, the junior ones are taking money, and sometimes when you're a young lawyer, you are even intimidated. They say, is this what your boss gave you to give us? This one is too small. How can you give me 500? What type of person? And then eventually, when you manage to get this judgment, you want to execute the sheriff section, that is bailiff section, is another problem. And when you now link with the police, you have to enforce huger problem. Now, and it's widespread. And offhand in Lagos, we have 135 magistrates, we have 55 judges. And then when you think of, when you ask any sincere lawyer in Lagos, for example, which is the biggest and busiest judiciary, you may not begin to talk about 10 judges offhand that you can say you stand robustified that this judge, you may not like the personality, but when it comes, or you may not like our judgment, but when it comes to issue of integrity, you say, oh, I could mention names, Doris Okuo, you may not like Latifah Okunu, J. You say, Okunu, no, you, before she became to Court of Appeal, JSC, you say Kekeriakun cause nothing. And when you have judges like that, Oyewole, before you became Abiru, these are names, Oyefeso. When you go there, even their registrars cannot even mess up with you.
So it is obvious then, Dennis, that people actually know the corrupt judges.
It's
an
open corrupt secret. Let me even shock you the more. Let me shock you the more. You see, he has mentioned some names that I hear those days from Chief Gani Fawemi. And let me also shock you the more. You see, in the political circle, they say, don't worry, they can win the election. We are going to take it at the court level. It's an open secret. And it will be done with clinical efficiency. No iota of, remorse that this is wrong. They say, no, we are going to get it, at the court. They say, the guy doesn't have money. He can't fight us at the court.
The impunity that we talk about that exists within the legislature, the executive, and the rest of them may actually find its root within the judiciary.
In fact, it's festering within the judiciary. And let me also let you know this. You see, it's unfortunate. What happened is that the judiciary in this country, and let anybody do a check, is actually the pivot of corruption in the country. How? They divide the treasury with the state. They do business with the state. They say, look, you want to have the state? Well, let me have this. And you know what they do? As they have this and deliver the judgment, they still set up an appeal that will still return these people to and fro. Now, watch what happens. When they give victory to somebody, another person will reverse it. It's the same network. So they don't even have anything called conscience. They don't have fear. But let me also say this. There are those lawyers, there are those judges with integrity.
All right. We'll come back to this. Uche and Daniel, we'll come back to you shortly. Let's go on a break and then we go ahead with this discussion. Stay with us. All right, if you're just joining us, you're watching TVC Breakfast. On this segment, we are discussing all the efforts going on as a way of cleansing the judiciary in Nigeria. A 10-man committee has been set to look into ways of coming up with reformation and enhancing transparency in the judiciary in Nigeria. We have in the studio Additional Gulano. He is the chairman of the Nigeria Bar Association Ikeja branch here in Lagos. And we have Dennis Etiminyang Bekwe. He is a former president of the Nigerian Association, National Association of Nigerian Students, NANS. We have Uche Igwe joining us in the UK on Skype. We have Daniel Boala in our Abuja studio. Now, Uche, let me come to you on this. Well, when it comes to the issue of corruption, we know that it is not just the judiciary, even though our focus is on judiciary. A lot of people have said that corruption is well rooted in Nigeria. But if we have to go forward, looking into ways of reforming, ways of transforming the judiciary, if the judiciary is transformed right now, let's create that picture or create that scenario, and the other system outside the judiciary is not transformed, how long would the judiciary keep afloat when it comes to looking at corruption from that window?
I think that I had said this earlier, Dan. What is clear here is there is a marriage between the political elite and high-level judicial officers. Mind you, the whole response you're getting is because these judicial officers are people who allegedly would have done one or two favors to one or two members of the political elite. So if we must purge the judiciary, we must first of all establish the links of these judicial officers with the members of the political elite. Because I am of the strong opinion that it is this relationship is mutually reinforcing and is sustaining one another. If we focus on the judiciary without establishing their links with the political elite, the corruption in the judiciary will end up, coming back again, because you will take away the effect without taking away the cost. The cost of the corruption, what is sustaining corruption in the judiciary, is the patronage of the political elite. So we must establish the link, okay, and make sure that while we are focusing on the judiciary, we must also end up, getting the political elite and all the factors. For instance, if they are talking about bribery, who gave the bribes? For what? Until these questions are answered. And while I said this, I also want to take us to the committee that's already constituted. Already, the lawyers with you, and I commend the chairman of MBA Lagos branch on the issues he has raised. He has raised the issue that there are people in that committee, especially former president of MBA, and I was also told that a former chief judge of Rivers State is on that committee. Nigerians need to start asking, both Nigerians and Nigerians in diaspora, and all those interested in, transparency and accountability in the judiciary should ask that who are these people? How come two people are coming from Rivers State? What are their roles? What are their linkages? Until we understand these linkages, we are just, going on a perambulation. We start from point A, pretending to be doing ethics, and we're trying to reform the judiciary. We go round and round and round and come back to point A until we look at the factors sustaining this corruption, until we look at both the alleged bribe takers and also those who gave them the bribes. We will not solve the problem.
All right,
that's my view.
Uche Igwe speaking with us via Skype from London there. Thank you so much for your input on the show this morning. Daniel, let me come to you. Now, it's obvious that corruption may have found its way to the highest point of the judiciary, talking about the Supreme Court, where now you have two judges who have had to step aside. So corruption is not just at the lower cadres of the judiciary. How can confidence be reposed in the judiciary again, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court?
I would suggest that for the existing petition against the justices of the Supreme Court or any other appellate court, let the National Judicial Council continue in considering the petition and establishing whether or not there is an allegation against the judge. But my recommendation will be that we need a legislation that will create a Judicial Conduct Investigation Bureau or office that will be tasked with the responsibility of dealing with petitions as it relates to corruption. And such commission or office should comprise of the former retired justice of the Supreme Court or any justice of the Supreme Court, and the members should be legal practitioners from all the law enforcement agents of the country, so that if a petition bordering on allegation of corruption, for example, is brought against a judge to that office, the members of the law enforcement agents would have been properly briefed about the criminal record of that judge based on the information that either of the agencies would have carried out against against that judge, and then we can have an appropriate discipline measure on that judge. But the problem we have is that the National Judicial Council consists of sitting judges who are members that consider allegation against a judge, and so it is difficult sometimes when a petition is brought against a judge to have another sitting judge to preside over that allegation, because then you don't even know whether such a judge in whose there is a petition against is a godson of any of the members of the panel. In other jurisdictions, that is exactly what they do. They allow the body to continue with its administrative work, but then create another body that deals or handles matters that border on corruption. And in Nigeria, I think that corruption is so obvious in every facet of our lives that we need to take appropriate measure to deal with it. And my recommendation would be to create by legislation a body or commission or office, whatever nomenclature you give it, that should deal with allegation of corruption against the judges or justices of the Supreme Court. All right,
Daniel Bwala, thank you very much for lending your time to us on TVC Breakfast. Thank you. Now let's get back to the studio. Additional, moving forward, even though we don't have all the time right now, but in true terms, even though you have faulted the composition of this committee, if there has to be a turnaround as to, okay, let's listen to Additional, give us advice on what the composition should be and how effective it should be, what picture would you create?
I should like to create a situation of thinking of identifying known voices against corruption, even among the judges. There was this former justice of the Supreme Court, Waifo, who gave that very interesting. His own reaction was much different from the reaction of so many other people in the legal field. Such characters, such personalities, who are reform-minded. And you'll be thinking deeper that even let's look at how we have been employing these judges. You are hardly employed on merit. You are employed on connection. In Lagos State, the Emir of Lagos, the Emir of this, the Emir of this. Yes, you have to have your connection. You want to become a senior advocate. People like us cannot become senior advocate. I'm not even interested. Because it's not a matter of putting application. You have to lobby. And lobby in Nigeria means you have to grease palms one way or the other. You have to first admit that there is a serious problem in our system. That's what the NJC is incapable of doing. And the little the NBA has done, our body has done, they have even been vilified, and there's trying to be a kind of rapprochement between the two bodies. So the sincerity really is not there. When you have sincerity, it doesn't have to be a large body. You want to do a surgical operation, you want to take out some things. In 2001, when Professor Yemi Oshibaji was Attorney General of Lagos State, in one day, 26 magistrates were taken out of the system. It was this type of sting operations. And I had the opportunity of going to the prof to ask for somebody supposedly clean. The gentleman just told me, I don't go there. We were looking for about 5 or 6 of them that are notorious, but we threw debates to so many. And this fellow got it. And so it's really a serious problem. You want to look at even non-lawyers. people of real integrity. So it's like when you mention someone, you just mention Gani Fahimi, you don't have someone like Gani Fahimi. You just put people like that together, and even in the ADM, as we are blaming the judges, so don't let's forget the country's pipe, so the lawyers. So this is this. Most times the judges get corrupted through lawyers, and sometimes there are so much gloves in hand that some judges will be recommending to litigants, who is a lawyer? They say, drop him. We can work with this and we cannot work with that one. The legal profession, family, know the serious-minded judges and serious-minded lawyers. So you write them together.
Let me get your final take on this, Dennis. The executive itself hardly has confidence in the judiciary. It's actually set up a special criminal court that will deal, on corruption and other cases. So where do we go from here?
Well, my take is this. Let the executive take a back seat on this so that it doesn't become the judiciary versus the executive. That's the dichotomy the public may not be able to handle in terms of perception. But Buhala has actually given a clue to what I had in mind. Look, set up a commission independent of NJC. Now bring in legal practitioner representation from all these law enforcement agency, because I don't see any reason why the NJC is not working in collaboration with State Security Service. First of all, you don't have the capacity to do any sting operation. You sit on law books, and interestingly, this caliber of people only think of how to turn, they used to tell us the law is an ass, so they write it the way they want. Okay. And the truth of the matter is that let us start with one thing. Set up a commission to try corrupt judges, and let the membership be drawn from credible retired judges, which means when you come to this place, we are not giving you any kind of verdict because we think you are still going to be useful to us in the system to maybe engineer or enhance some form of
All right, Dennis.
We'll have to end it there.
Thank you very much for coming, and additional Gulanos, thank you very much for coming on the program.
Welcome. Thank you so much.
Right. We thank Daniel Buala for joining us from our Abuja studio, and Uche Igwe, who joined us earlier from the United Kingdom. This is where we come to the end of today's edition of the program.